Hey, mamas, welcome to the Connected Mom podcast. I am Becky Harling, your host. I am super excited about today's conversation. I think about 3 years ago, we had Julie Lavender on our podcast, and she was talking about 365 ways to love your child. Well, since that time, Julie has been extremely busy. I mean, she's putting out books faster than any of us could count. And she has come out with some amazing children's books. And we are in the middle of this series on children's books because I want to give you as moms some resources to help cultivate a love of reading in your child. And even for those kids that maybe don't really love reading, we want to give you some ideas and some help in that journey. You know that our overall mission here at the Connected Mom is to help you grow deeper in your connection with God, more empathetic in your connection with your fellow moms, and more intentional with your child. And so this kind of fits more intentional with your child and a deeper connection with God. And we're going to talk about that all today with Julie Lavender. So Julie has been a journalist. She's been a teacher. She's an author. She's a speaker. She was a homeschool mom for a lot of years. And she is a prolific author. Her husband, David, retired from the military. And, you know, retire is just such a funny word because together, I think they've written like 34 educational books just since 2023. How you do that, I don't know. So Julie's going to tell us, but I also want to talk today about her children's book, The Advent Stories for Bedtime, because as I record this, we're coming up on the Advent season. And so I'm hoping this is going to be an amazing conversation for you moms out there. So welcome, Julie.
Thank you so much. And my goodness, when you said it had been 3 years ago, it didn't feel like it's been that long ago. Time just continues to fly by. As you and I were talking before you hit the record button, God has just blessed David and I with our writing so much. And I'm so grateful. I've been writing for a long time, most of it faith-based material, but I started out as an educator. I was a teacher before I became a stay-at-home mom. Well, that's when I fell in love with children's writing, children's books. I just thought they were so amazing. I loved almost every one I read. There were only a few that I found that either had poor grammar, not a good plot, whatever. And I thought, well, it must be so easy to write and publish a children's book. It must be so easy. Well, boy, was I wrong about that. Completely wrong. And so I started doing a little bit of research, figured out everything I was doing wrong. And God led me down a different path. I got no acceptances for children's books way back then, but God led me down a different path that I'm so happy about because He led me to write mostly faith-based material. And I had so much fun doing that. But now that I've been doing this for almost 4 decades, it is the sweetest treat that God has given me because my first dream was to write a children's picture book. And I was a teacher. I'm an educator at heart. I homeschool my children. I love the idea of educating children. So started out in the education world. And now all these years later, God has blessed me with these books that are in school libraries that I'm writing with my husband. So it's like God has brought me full circle. And He gave me my first traditionally published children's picture book just last year, A Gingerbread House. It's like He said, okay, you've done
Amazing.
well, it's just so fun. And it's like He said, okay, join me where I am. You know, God can do anything He wants without us. He doesn't need our help. But at the same time, He allows us. And it's such a blessing to be able to come alongside Him and do what we can, whether that's writing, whether that's being a mom, whether that's being a teacher, to just further His kingdom. And so I have enjoyed it so much. But I did all that. And then I think it's like He said, you know, remember that dream you had almost 4 decades ago? It's coming true this year. You're going to have your children's picture book. And I've had the most fun. I read it in my grandson's kindergarten, and he just grinned. He was so excited that Grandmommy was up front reading her book. So it's just been a really fun journey. Somebody asked my husband the other day, they said, David, did you realize when you retired what your wife was about to do with you encouraging? He said, I had no idea. but he's loving it too.
Pause there for a minute. So David is retired and together you started writing. Now that can go great for husbands and wives, or it can really be stretching. So be honest with us. How has that gone for you, Julie?
Okay, in the beginning, now it was never, it was never terrible. But in the beginning, there were a few spats because here's the thing. I've always bragged on my husband. I've always thought he was brilliant. He was a medical entomologist for the Navy for 20 years. He taught for 3 years at a technical college in biology, and then he was a wildlife biologist for the Army. I just feel like he knows so much about nature and animals and plants. So I've always thought he was brilliant. When we started writing, the first assignment we had, I'm pretty sure it was fourth grade reading level. So these educational books, they assign us the topic, exactly what they want, how many sidebars, how many words, because it's got to fit in the curriculum of the school calendar, school grades. David would do the research and get started, and I'd add, but he'd give it to me, and it was like on a ninth grade reading level. And I'd say, David, you're killing me. You're killing me. I said, you got to help me. We got to speak to, because he was used to speaking to adults, I said, you got to help me write on this fourth grade level. So to begin with, there were a lot of little back and forth like that. But we honestly have the best time. I write in my den, which is right across there. I write in my little rocking recliner. He's in an office over there. He'll be typing something and he'll yell out to me. He'll say, do we need to put this in here? And I'll yell back to him. Sometimes we send each other email if it's complicated. It's just we're two rooms down, and we send each other an email. We're having a blast. We really are. Now everything we see, we think, oh, will that make a good children's book? Oh, look at that bird. Should we write about them? We're having a good time.
I'm so glad because let me tell you, I wrote one book with my husband and I love my husband dearly. My husband is not a rule follower. So we wrote a book on leadership together, and I would say, well, you can't put that in the book. I'd say, sure I can. And I'd say, we have to respect the timeline, in the date that this is due. And he would be like, no, that's just a suggestion on their part. And I was like, you're driving me crazy. I love you, but let's get this in.
Now, David did similar things to me too. I'd say, because if there's a book, you can look up these words. And he said, I can't believe that's not a third grade word. We're going to use it anyway. And I said, David, the book doesn't lie. It's not a third grade word. We can't use that word.
Oh, you gotta love these men of ours, And I love that David's up for the adventure. And I think what a testimony, Julie, that your books are in school libraries. So I looked a few of them up on Amazon before we get to the two I really want to talk about. I mean, you've got one about a fox, one about a seal, one about a lemur. And I mean, there's this whole series that now are are they in the public school too?
Yes, they are. They're in public libraries, public school libraries. Yes, that's been a fun journey because of the nature of the fact that they've got to be in schools all across the United States. Even though we're talking about nature a lot of times, what David and I would love to be able to say is that's just the way God created them, this particular animal, whatever. Now, we can't do it that way, but what we have loved doing, there's a couple of times, one of the books, one animal, I think it might be a particular shark, there's something that he does. Maybe it's a fast shark. I can't even remember now, but it has something to do with how fast the animal is. Well, they call it I think it's the Jehu syndrome or whatever. I can't remember now. But anyway, in our sidebar, we were able to put, this was named for the fastest chariot driver in the Bible. Well, we weren't sure that would stay in there, but it did. And there was another series that we did. Those are called the Nate and Nora series, and they explore America's hidden treasures. So most of that is factual stuff, but they wanted us to add a little bit of a fiction element to it. So Nate and Nora are these two brother and sister that go looking for these, and at the end it insinuates that they find the treasure. Well, one of these is historical, that the treasure map they found was in an old Bible. And so they included that in these books. It's got a big picture of an old looking Bible, and it says the treasure map was found in a family Bible that was in the back room or whatever. Those are little things that we enjoy including in there, even though it may be the first time somebody's heard about a Bible when they read it in there. So
And that's cool. I was also thinking, like, if somebody goes looking for your animal books or for your treasure books or any of your nature series, your educational books, they might say, oh, we really like what she writes, so we're going to look at some of her other books, which could then lead them back to Jesus. So I love that you guys are doing this. Okay, so let's talk about first the gingerbread house, because that was your first children's book, right? What age, what is the age that it's geared towards,
I
and
would
what's it
say
about?
kindergarten, first and second. Now, most picture books are designed for either a parent or a teacher to read to the children with them, sitting next to them on the couch, in their lap, whatever. But I would definitely say maybe 4 or 5 up to 7 or 8, because by 7 or 8, they can read it themselves. It's written in rhyme. It's about a grandfather and a granddaughter putting together a gingerbread house because, well, I guess they're behind me, but I have loved doing gingerbread houses with my family. It was just a special memory. It's just something we did over the years. And when my children, because I have adult children now and grandchildren, when they got older, I thought it was a tradition that we were going to have to give up. And I can remember, so I'm sitting in the dining room and they were in here, my adult kids were in here putting together these houses. I was in the kitchen where they couldn't see me. I was actually crying into the icing as I was mixing up in the blender in the mixer, because I thought that was the last time we were ever going to make houses. I don't really know what I thought. I guess that maybe we didn't have grandkids at the time. I don't know. But I thought, oh, this is an end of an era. I'll never make them again. So I wound up leaving them out forever. And when it got to be February, David said, can we do something with these? It's Valentine's. Because I always tossed them after Christmas. And I said, oh my gosh, that is a great idea. So I decorated them all for Valentine's. And then I just continued. I just decorated every season. I left them out all year. The following year, my daughter, the youngest, said, Mom, can we please do houses one more year? Dawson, that was her boyfriend at the time, now husband. Dawson has never done that with our family. I'd like to do it at least one more time. Well, you can just believe I was just ecstatic. And by the time the next year rolled around, we had grandkids we were doing them with. So anyway, these all stay up all year long. But because of that,
I have the funniest memory of my father-in-law. He has since gone home to be with Jesus, but he was just a delight to my heart. And when Steve and I had our first two grandsons, they had little brothers and sisters, but they weren't old enough yet. I think the oldest two were like maybe 5 and 6. And Steve's dad, so they would have been his great grandchildren. They decided to make this gingerbread train, and they worked so hard on it, and then the whole thing fell apart. And then great grandpa was singing to them and laughing with them and saying, the train had a wreck, and they were all laughing, and it was just wonderful.
it's a memory they will treasure forever. That's it. The putting it together, that's what makes it so special. And that's why that idea came to me, because it was such a wonderful memory. I just wanted to share it and say, make these memories, find the time, be intentional, make these memories. And so that's how that book was birthed. And I just had the blessed opportunity to read it last week at the National Gingerbread Competition in Asheville, North Carolina, and I read it as part of. Oh yes, it was great. I read it as part of their opening weekend when they bring all of them in just before they judge. So it's just fascinating. And the thing about, you were talking about trying to encourage even maybe the reluctant readers. Well, I used to love, when I was teaching and with my children, when I read a book, then find something fun to do with it. My book definitely lends itself to reading the book. Even if it's a reluctant reader, let them be over there sorting the candy you're about to decorate the house with. They're still listening to the book and hearing it. So, yes, it lends itself to a perfect activity to go with it.
I love that so much. And now you have come out with an Advent book for children. I think what remind me of the name now. I have
It's
it written
called
down
Children's
here.
Advent Stories for Bedtime.
I love that, because I think the evangelical church is waking up to the whole concept of Advent and really making this beyond Christmas and all the fun of Christmas. I mean, I've always loved Christmas, but really exploring the deeper meaning and celebrating the whole concept of Advent. So tell us about your Advent stories for bedtime. I love that, Julie.
Well, it was just such a fun book to do. I had a copy here with me. So this publisher is an imprint of Penguin Random House, and we had written, I think about 3 or 4 years ago now, it's called Children's Bible Stories for Bedtime. Well, that book did so well for my publisher that they wanted to have this one, Children's Advent Stories for Bedtime. And they wanted the 25 stories. And so we, of course, start with creation. We start with, God has a plan. Even in creation, God had a plan. He knew we would need a savior. He knew we were not going to be able to do it so well on our own. And so, we talk about Adam and Eve, but we already talk about the anticipation of a savior that's coming. And so we have the 25 stories, and, it's meant to be read at bedtime, but obviously it can be read anytime. But, part of it is to encourage keeping Christ as the forefront in our children's minds, because we do get so busy and life gets chaotic at Christmas time, which things that have to be done, things that are fun and we want to do, but we still want to find some kind of way to keep their hearts and minds focused on the birth, on baby Jesus coming.
Yeah, I love that so much, and I think it's so amazing that you have published so many books, the bedtime stories, the Christian Bible stories, the Advent stories, the gingerbread house, the fun part of Christmas, and all of that, and it all comes together. So tell us, I know you said you started the Advent book with creation, and what is each kind of day like? Do you just read a story? Is there a prayer at the end? What is there? Describe it to us.
Okay, so we have, and this is meant to be probably to be read to kids because we wanted it to be a family experience. But it has, let me see, 1, 2, 3. So there's about like 3 pages to read the story. Then there's a Bible study. There's a page, and it's titled Bible Study, and it's just to really kind of unpack what happened in the story, because the first part is the actual Bible story. Then it's to unpack the Bible story to kind of help explain some of the things to kids. There are reflection questions. So there's 3 reflection questions and then a prayer at the end. And there is some of it, it's meant to be, it is definitely the Bible story, but one of the fun ones we had, and my husband as a biologist wanted to do this one. Let me see what we actually called it. Oh, we called it Whose Manger Did Mary Borrow? So that one is kind of let's think about what animals might have been at Jesus's birth. We don't know that. There's a lot we don't know about this, and we tried to make sure we said that in this book. We don't know if it happened this way, but here's how Bible scholars think it could have happened because of this.
Yes.
So that was a fun one to do, and we hope the kids will, because often I can get as excited about what maybe wasn't included in a Bible story when I read when I read something, as I can that's right there in front of me. And of course I use, I let my thoughts use God's character, God's nature, the other parts of the Bible to help me think, I wonder how that happened, and I wonder what happened. Because I always want to know more. You know, I just want to know more. I want to know what really happened next. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So give us an example of one of the reflection questions,
All right. Let me
And
find
how old
one.
are the kids that you suggest this for?
My publisher chose from like 4 to 8, I think is the age. 4 is probably too young to listen to a whole story. I'm thinking perhaps kindergarten, but definitely, first through third grade. So probably kindergarten through second or third grade.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. So the story about the angels appearing to the shepherds, one of the reflection questions. What sorts of things scare you? When are you afraid? What is your biggest fear? So get them thinking about those sorts of things. Then the next one, God knows your fears. God knows everything about us, our thoughts, our words, and our actions. He wants to comfort us in our fears. What do you think and feel when you hear that God knows about your fears? And then there's just a couple more. One of them, it ends with help from mom or dad. Look up verses about fear and God's strength in the Bible. Write them on note cards to read when you are afraid. My 7-year-old, he's almost 7, grandson is at that age where he's fearful of some things, the dark,
Yes. Yes.
an alien coming during the middle of the night, whatever,
Yes.
And so,
Can never predict when those aliens are coming.
that's exactly right. So, so we thought this would be a good idea to add, look up those verses in fear, because there's a lot of them. And, try to get those in our children's hearts so that they won't be fearful. So those are some of the questions.
Have you ever had your own grandkids field test or been like beta readers to see how they feel about the material you're coming out with?
I have not. So we have 3 grandchildren. He's about to be 7 this in December, and then our other 2 are just 1. Actually, I guess they've read them afterwards more so than before. He's probably getting to be an age now that we definitely should, but they don't live close by. They live in the Chattanooga area, so, and we see them often, but that will be fun. But he does love the idea. It makes him feel real special when we show him a book after it's come out, and especially if it has an author picture in the back, he gets really excited about that.
That's so cute. One of my granddaughters is an avid reader. She's 8. And so I have sometimes, publishers will send me a children's book ahead of the author, and I'll say, hey, can you read this and tell me what you think? And that's really fun to do. It's fun to get their opinion on some of these books. But I love that you have written this Advent, Bible story book. How do you explain Advent to kids that are like between kindergarten and 3rd grade? How have you explained it to them in the book? I mean, I'm assuming you did.
Right. Well, we try to emphasize the excitement, the joy that everybody was feeling. And because we pointed out from the very beginning, way back in Genesis, God, said, I will send someone for you. And so with each story, we tried to present that hope, and we tried to get that excitement. Because, kids are excited in December anyway. So we might as well capitalize on that excitement. So we tried to push, it's so exciting. God has promised a savior. He's sending someone. He's sending a baby that will grow up and be the savior of the world. So we talk about anticipating, we talk about getting excited, we talk about looking forward to. And then towards the back, we do say that, yes, Jesus was born Christmas so many years ago, but now we can look forward to his return. So we do go ahead and towards the back of it, mention that, Jesus will come again, because we do go through the sometimes hard story for kids to read about the crucifixion. So we go through the whole thing. So, but then we go back to by December 25th when they're reading that one, that's the birth of Jesus. But we do kind of like fast forward, I guess, to let the kids know about that. And then we end with, now we want to be this excited about Jesus's second coming as well, the next time he comes.
Yeah, I just love that so much because I don't think that there's a lot that's been written out there for kids about being excited about the second coming of Christ. I mean, I think even when I was growing up, I felt fearful of his second coming. What if I wasn't good enough? Even though I had asked Jesus into my heart, nobody really taught me that the second coming is going to be wonderful because Jesus comes in love to, gather his people. And so I love that you included that in the book. And I think what a great conversation starter for that. So Julie, we are kind of out of time. But I love having you on here so much because I feel like if ever there was a children's author, I mean, you are the quintessential children's author. You have put out so much and I love it, and what's great about your books is you have something for like below kindergarten, for the kindergarten ages, but then also some of your educational books go up to like age 10, like 4th, 5th grade. And so there's a whole variety. So where can our listeners get a hold of your books, Julie?
Well, they are definitely on the amazing Amazon that everybody goes to, but they also they might not be in the bookstore, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million, but they can definitely order them for you. And so any place where you can order or purchase books, you should be able to get my books. Some of the educational ones are hard to find. on Amazon and some of those places. So you have to go to the specific site, but typically they are. Mitchell Lane has our different series. The thing about books that are in the school library, I'll say real quickly, because they have to put those library binding on the covers, those are more expensive. Unless you can find them paperback, they're probably not cost effective for parents to buy, but that's just because they need to hold up in school libraries for a lot of little hands. So that's why a lot of those are a little bit more expensive, but sometimes they make them in paperback as well. Our Shark series is in paperback as well.
Yeah, and that will be such a fun one. And now I think too, Julie, you were a homeschooling mom. And so, hey, if you're tuning in today and you're a homeschooling mom, you are definitely going to want to get a hold of some of these educational books, because I think they will really reinforce what you're teaching your children at home, you know, the Shark series and some of these other series. So if they can't find it on Amazon, what can we list a publisher in our show notes where they can go?
Yes. So the Creative Company and Mitchell Lane are our two. Those are our two publishers. Yes, the ones we're working on now, they aren't out yet, so there's no reason to go to that site. But Mitchell Lane and the Creative Company.
Okay, so friends, we will have those websites in the show notes for you, because I just am so excited about Julie and David's books, and I think that these are great resources for you, for your family, for your kiddos. And so I hope you're going to jump on Amazon as soon as we get off, and definitely get the Gingerbread House and the Advent one. And then, you know, you may want to get some of the animal ones for your kids for Christmas or their birthdays or whatever. I mean, what a great plethora of options for you. So Julie, thanks for joining us today. And moms out there, I want you to know that Jesus is for you. He is cheering for you. He is praying for you in your motherhood journey. And he knows that you are doing great work for God by mothering those kiddos. So know that here at the Connected Mom Podcast, we are behind you and we are for you as well. So thanks for joining us today. And we hope you're going to join us next week for another episode of The Connected Mom.